You will recall our discussions of the 2 times that we met. The first time we covered a broad sense of who we are and why we are here. You remember these 2 questions which I raised as being essential, and around what you find yourself to be, the answer you find for the first and second questions will be the outcome of your entire life. If you're here by chance, your life will be a series of random events, wandering around aimlessly, and an aimless life is a miserable life. If you're here for a purpose and you consciously align yourself to the purpose that you have chosen to take birth for, you will find every step of your life fulfilling, meaningful, joyful, interesting, isn't it? Because you're doing what you want, what you are designed, formed to do and to be. And as you grow in the line which is yours, the sense of success is identical with the sense of growth. You grow, you feel it worthwhile. You can imitate what someone may call success. Maybe you become famous, you become rich, you build comfort, but you will be miserable internally because you're not on your track. You will recall this sentence Shri Krishna teaches Arjuna, that when you follow somebody else's dharma, even if you seem to be successful, you've failed. If you follow your own dharma, even if it looks like you're not successful in other people's eyes, you feel fulfilled. There is a term he uses, paradharmo bhayavaha, that somebody else's dharma is dangerous even, because you go so wildly off track. You see examples of this among some of the very famous people, including people that you would call successful, film stars or people who are in the fashion industry, well-known, famous, wealthy, recognized everywhere. You might think they will feel so happy to be loved and recognized by everyone and so comfortable and rich, and they commit suicide or they have severe depressions. How do you explain that? And this is the explanation. It's not the wealth, it's not the fame, it's not the comfort, it's the sense of fulfillment, purposefulness. And if they're off their track, they feel hollow, empty, meaningless. That's causing the depression. Okay? So anytime you feel depressed, rather than taking tablets or going to a doctor, which is now the new norm, they teach you depression can be corrected by medicines. No, it's not a brain problem. It's a misalignment between what you're doing and what you already are deep within you. Who you are and what you're trying to become, these two are misaligned. This misalignment, as the gap grows more and more, depression is the outcome. And when you are aligned, so at that point you stop doing what you're doing. Center yourself, find yourself. We discussed a little bit of what that means. Find yourself as deeply as you can, and then again rebuild from inside what are your real values, real aspirations, real sense of worth and purpose. And as you align yourself with the real, once again the joy and interest will come back into your life. Okay? We also discussed what we are is not just a conscious soul that has taken birth, but we also have taken on a body and the capacities and limitations of the body. We saw that we have not just a gross body, we have a vital body and a mental body and even a spiritual potential above. And all these are interlinked and plugged into each other. So if you can act top down, you have the potential to reshape everything and master yourself. If you make the mistake of what they teach today in the modern biology, that we are a product of our body and cells and brain, if you go bottom up, you are a victim of your heredities. At least that's what they will tell you. They go so far, and it's so ridiculous when you think about it. In the court, they argue that so-and-so person had a gene, therefore, because of this gene, he will have criminal tendencies, so it's not his fault if he commits a crime. You can see how ridiculous this is. But that's a perversion. A top-down movement will liberate you. and let you be master of yourself. And that mastery, we saw some of the scope of that, the potential of that. You saw that your identity, even your consciousness, extends well beyond your body. We did experiments with some of this. You remember that still?
Yes.
Did you experiment further with this? With your aura, with your personal space, with directing your energies? Try it out. It's worth the trouble. And it's the beginning of control, which will lead to mastery eventually. And there are specific practices you can take up if it interests you. In our second discussion, we took a broader perspective of the group influences. If we have a physical body and a vital body and a mental body, and these extend well beyond, then they also intermingle, they also join, they also influence each other. And we are all the time influencing each other, even if we are not conscious. You have thoughts which come into you, which are not yours. They come into you, they pop up inside you, and you say, I have an idea. Has it happened to you that at the same time, two people said exactly the same thing as you were saying? How does that happen? Because there's a thought hanging around which is passed on or it's caught by more than one person, and you say at the same moment the exact same words. If you train yourself a little bit and make your mind silent, you can actually sense other people's thoughts, or you can even influence them. I'll give you an example which is actually funny, but it gives you the sense of how it works. There's a friend of mine, he was a businessman, and as a businessman, he faced a lot of uncertainty. So he resorted to astrology. Of course, he didn't depend on astrology also. He would take advice from his driver, he would take advice from anybody, and finally he would decide. So he would go to this astrologer and he told me, this man is so wonderful. He can tell me down to the hour what will happen. I've studied astrology. I know it doesn't work like that. So I said, okay, let's see. So we were sitting together, and this man tells the astrologer, he's just introduced us, he says, okay, looking at me, can you describe what is the ascending sign? Because the sign which is rising on the east at birth often has a strong influence on your appearance. So looking at my overall build, one should be able to say something. So this astrologer looks at me, and I said, okay, let me test him also. So I dangled the idea of number 6 in front of his head. You know, like you fish, you dangle on a hook and the fish catches. So I dangle in front of his face this idea, number 6. This guy looks at me and says, number 6. And my friend is shocked because sign number 6 is not a tall build. Tall builds would be one of two signs. It doesn't make much intelligence to be able to guess one or the other. It's literally 50% chance to get it right. And this man caught 6. So what was he doing as an astrologer? He was not doing any astrology. He was doing a mind reading. He was looking at people, sensing their ideas, sensing their fears, hopes, desires, and plugging it back to you. And you say, oh, this guy caught it. I've always thought like that. This fellow confirmed it. No, he didn't. He just read your mind and fed it back to you. He fooled you. Now watch what happens. This is where the trick comes. My friend says again, no, don't be so foolish. Now think. He's tall. He's even telling him. Now it's down to 2 signs. He's tall. Look at him and tell me what is his rising sign. And again, I dangled number 6. Now you look at the guy. If he is a little bit of intelligence, he will say, hey, I just said 6. It can't be 6. Right? And he goes, number 6. Do you realize how stupid this is? He's not even using his intelligence. A successful astrologer is a complete idiot. He's not even thinking. He's just said something wrong and he's again saying the same wrong thing. He's not even thinking. He's just going by this feel, and that is what was the basis of his success. And my friend was shocked. And after that, I had to tell him, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I dangled the thing. But it means he was not doing astrology at all. I'm just showing this as an example. When you become quiet in your mind, when you become conscious of thoughts, you actually realize how much is actually exchanged without our realizing, without our knowing. Okay? So this was part of the discussion in our second meeting. On a group level, we explained how mob psychology works, why groups behave strangely, why you behave strange when you are a part of a group. And the strange can be good or bad. depending on the culture and the group consciousness. We took examples of how that works. We spoke of also group consciousness as a unit of the family, units of tribes, units of regions, states, nations, and perhaps even a global human unit. I want to give you an example of this human unit because this is going to be fascinating, and I hope, and one of my objectives here is a little bit to blow your mind, meaning break boundaries of your sense of what is reality, because you must outgrow these narrow perspectives that our current education has drilled into us. So this is going to be an example, and then I will open out to questions. So this example is one of the most amazing experiments which is currently ongoing, based in Princeton University. And the website for this experiment is called noosphere.princeton.edu. What they have done is, all over the world, the last count I had seen, they had 65 different computers in which they put a little card on which there is a random number generator. What is a random number generator? A tiny atom is being watched by some electronic circuits, and as one or cluster of atoms, as they vibrate randomly, supposedly, the circuit detects this, converts this into pulses. So you have about 65 streams coming from all over the earth. India, there are 2, I believe. Last I knew, one was in Bangalore, one was in Delhi. But so 65 streams of random numbers are coming, and it's all combined into their central computer. And then they do a statistical analysis over it on the overall randomness of these 65 streams. So randomness of randomness is random. So you get basically a fluctuation of random variations. Very simple experiment. Now watch what happens. Every now and then, the measurement of the randomness, the number goes high when they are less random, when they are more correlated. So every now and then, the graph starts rising and then falls again, and again becomes random, or again rises and again becomes random. And what they found was, wherever there is an event in which many minds or emotions are connected together, it influences the graph and the graph starts going up. I'll give an example. You have World Cup football. 1 billion people are watching the live football feed. Maybe 4 to 5 seconds between the actual event and what is seen by people. Let's say there is this person rushing now to give a goal. There's a tension that builds inside you. Okay? 1 billion people are experiencing tension. And as that tension builds, your graph goes up. And at the moment when the person has shot and hit the goal or missed it, your tension breaks and the graph falls. Fascinating. Oscar Awards, they're going to read out, and the winner is, and they pause dramatically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, graph goes up and then again falls. Now you'd say, how can this be? How is it possible? If you remember 2004, I think, there was a tsunami in the Bay of Bengal, and about 2 lakh people who were on the coast of various countries, including India, more than 2 lakh people died from the water. When that happened, the people died, the graph didn't go up. An hour later, the news hit the television screens. And millions of people watching the news of tsunami were affected emotionally, and the graph began to go up. Interesting. So the graph is reflecting the common affectation or emotional connection of people in a mass. In other words, if we are all right now emotionally connected, aligned, or in thought united, then the vibrations of the atom are somehow no more random, they are more aligned with each other. I'm going to come back to this. This is a very important point to discuss. But I will give one more example. Every New Year's Eve, at least in the West, it used to be a fashion to wait till midnight and then do a countdown of the last 10 seconds, and then again chaos, party. In India, that has also come now quite a bit, at least for those who do it. What is interesting is the time zone of New Year celebration actually moves every hour across the face of the earth. So across your 64 computers which are spread out, you can actually see, according to the time zone, the last 10 seconds before midnight, the graph shoots up. And when it hits midnight, people start screaming, shouting, and the graph falls again into chaos. And then next hour, in the next time zone, all the computers in that zone, the graph goes up, falls. You can actually see a wave of alignment of emotions and thoughts moving across the face of the earth. Isn't this amazing? In the duration of the experiment now, which is nearly 30 years, can you guess which event the graph went up highest? For some of you, you may not have been born, but most of you it should be. Sorry? 9/11. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 9/11 World Trade Center attacks was the event in which the graph went up highest. How many of you have actually seen the videos of that? Okay, good. So you remember at that point, the shock across the world, the event had just happened. Every single television channel was showing the same videos. That's why it hit. Suppose it was one channel. Oh, I read on the newspaper the next morning. Different story. Every single TV channel had been taken over by the images which were a live feed from the events there. We saw this as if the collapse of the towers, and all this was happening. Mass of humanity was watching, glued and in shock. And during about 3 days, you felt this common sense of humanity and the sense of disgust against terrorism. You felt it, and after 3 days, it faded out. What was interesting is the graph went up the highest during these experiments, during that period, stayed up for 3 full days, and then gradually came down. That means for 3 full days, all the atoms of the earth, now remember, you're measuring 64 atoms picked at random, but all other atoms also are aligned. All the atoms of the earth, physical atoms, were vibrating less randomly. They were vibrating in greater alignment. Purely physical, very objective. You can download the data and do your own analysis over it. Think of the implications. But I'm going to come to one more part, which is the real shocker. The first attack started in the morning of September 11th, US time, around, I believe, 9 o'clock or 9:15. But it hit the screens an hour or two later. But the graph itself started rising up a full 6 hours before the first attack. How do you explain that the graph started rising up 6 hours before the attack, hit the peak at the time of the attack, stayed up for 3 days, and then faded out? Can you guess? Think about it. Why would the graph rise before even the attack takes place? Remember, the graph represents the collective consciousness in some way.
So there will be 2 reasons. One thing is organisms other than human beings like dogs, they predict things earlier.
Interesting.
One thing. Second thing, the terrorists who did it, they might know it.
Okay, so very good. 2 hypotheses. One is the terrorists who knew it, but they are very small in number. This effect is seen only when there are large numbers. But the first suggestion she makes is dogs and other animals might have sensed it. But I'm going to ask you a question. If dogs can sense it, why can't you sense it?
Because our senses are more, diverged.
Okay, our sense.
Spiritually heightened group sensed it as
Okay, spiritually heightened group sensed it. Perhaps dogs are more spiritual than us then.
We sense it, but we tend to not believe it.
Very interesting. We sensed it, but we don't believe it. Interesting. Now, here's an example. Before the tsunami hit coast of Pondicherry or Chennai, in Chennai, in the zoo, all the animals were trying to break out of their cages. They knew beforehand there was going to be a tsunami. On the Pondicherry coast, I was told the fishermen had come back for 3 days before. There's a particular red fish which lives in the deepest regions of the sea. It had come to the surface. That particular breed of fish knew there's going to be a tsunami. And the point that you made, which is very interesting and I like very much, when you said, we probably sense it also, like the dogs, but our mind is too programmed to not pay attention to what we feel. We are too turned outward, we are too dispersed. Had you been a bit conscious of yourself, you might have sensed already, something is not okay, something is going to come wrong. Have you felt this on certain days? It happens to us. Except that we have programmed ourselves to ignore. Whereas the animals have not been programmed, they have not been educated by humans, isn't it? But if we could pay attention, we would have sensed it also. And my point now is, in fact, humanity did sense it. A shock which is going to be so massive, we sense that there's a shock going to happen. We don't know what it is, but we sense the shock. And in our subtle body, we were already bracing for it, and that was registered on the machines. You see what an extraordinary experiment this is. And it's called the Global Consciousness Project, because it's literally measuring the global consciousness. Now, I'm going to take up a couple of other conclusions out of this. If this is the case, that the fact that we are all thinking of the same thing right now makes all the atoms of this room even vibrate in better harmony, what are the implications? You see, when there's an earthquake, there are places when there is no destruction, there are other places where there's massive destruction. If all the atoms of the earth are more aligned, more synchronized, when there is an earthquake, the shock of the earthquake, instead of being one gigantic shock, would be a series of small slips, harmoniously, no destruction. Or the weather patterns would be more adjusted to the human need and less extreme if we were better aligned. Edgar Cayce, if you've heard the name, actually commented how the solar flares were connected with the human state of consciousness. When we are more chaotic, the solar flares are more chaotic. That's the suggestion. But I'm going to come to one more massive implication of this. If your thoughts, your emotions are actually controlling, influencing at least the randomness of physical atoms and vibrations all around you, which is the part of the world that you are most influencing, most intensely, most completely? Your body, isn't it? Because you're carrying your mind and your emotions with you all the time. You see, sometimes you get fed up with life or your work and you say, I need a holiday. And you go to your holiday carrying what? Your mind and emotions. So eventually in your holiday, your problems catch up with you. First 2 days is fine. Third day, fourth day, the problems catch up with you, isn't it? Then you need a holiday from your holiday. But think of this. All your thoughts and emotions are constantly impacting your biology, including your cells and their working. And if you have thoughts which are chaotic, contradictory, negative, it's actually vibrating the atoms of your body with greater chaos, leading to greater breakdown of your cellular working and your health. Think about the implications. Your physical health at the level of atomic and molecular functioning is affected by your thoughts and emotions, or by the community and collectivity in which you live. If you go and live in a place where there is constant stress and tension, everybody falls sick. But not just with organic failure, it's also at a level which is atomic and molecular in reactions. Think about the implications. This is extraordinary insight that this very material experiment gives to us, and it also tells us all humanity is collected in one whole of a human consciousness. That's why the experiment website name is Noosphere. Noosphere is the sphere of mental awareness of humanity. Now, there's one interesting experiment which has also been done here. In the measurement across the last 30 years of measurements, what do you think, is the graph going up or down on the whole? Is humanity becoming more disconnected and chaotic, or more united and aligned and harmonious? And interestingly, we see the graph has a trend line which is going upward. That means humanity actually is coming together more and more and becoming more aligned in some way at least. So that gives you hope for the future. So this is broadly the background I wanted to share. Recall also our discussion on the second day, the implications in the collective consciousness when you direct your life in service to a higher purpose, a higher cause. If you chase your own desire and fulfillment, you may satisfy them, but at the end of it, you feel hollow. You've had this experience, I really want this for days, weeks, months. Eventually you get it. I got it. You have excitement of having got it. But then what do? It fades out within a day or two. Sometimes even you have a negative. Now what? Now my life is empty. I have nothing to chase, right? So if you chase a short-term goal, short-term purpose, too self-centered, you have only the satisfaction of your own narrowness. When you aim at a goal which is larger, more fulfilling, which impacts all in a bigger way, your satisfaction is as big as your goal, and the help you receive is as big as your goal. And that's why I had said, since we are all children of Mother India, and Bharat Mata is a conscious divine being, to consciously choose to serve her will give you very deep satisfaction, but also align you with her strength, her wisdom, and her love, which fills you because you're always dedicating yourself to the goal. Remember, the goal gives you the strength that you do not have to reach it. Small goal, small strength. Large goal, large strength. And it doesn't matter what you do. You could spend your entire life living at home, looking after family, but you do it in service to Mother India, and you will have that strength and joy of having done something worthwhile, isn't it? So this broadly is to touch some of the key points of our first two discussions. I'd like to ask your questions, and I would like, as far as possible, try not to repeat somebody else's questions. I want to get a quick survey. I will take about 5 questions immediately. Yes.
We spoke about astrology.
Yes.
And
astrology might not be practiced in its original sense
Yes.
now currently. So does it still apply when we are using it for arranged marriages and other
Okay.
things? And should we rely more on astrology, or how we currently say that our interests don't match, or many other criteria?
Yes.
Should we depend on those criteria, or should we depend on what astrology says?
Okay, good point. Next question. Yes. I'll just take 5 questions so I get a broad sense of the direction.
So I want to know about the word sadhana.
Okay.
What is it actually? It's a simple word, but is it jumping at a certain time? Is it meditating? Is
Okay.
it doing our own work as a sadhana?
Okay, good point.
My question is about the the research that is being done, which is called Global Consciousness Project.
Yes.
Yeah. I read more about it, but if we are looking at the graph and graph shows some difference before 6 hours, so do we analyze that why is it happening?
There's no way to know. We just know that something is happening.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like the intelligence are there, like they start.
At the moment, because the experiment is just done in the blind, we are just measuring vibrations, we can't know really what is causing it.
Okay.
But later we can know. After the event has happened, we can say, this caused it.
Yeah, but you said that we are not looking for it, that's why we are not getting it. But there are teams like intelligence of the countries
Okay,
who are looking for
that's
it.
possible. Yes.
Yeah. So why they can
Okay,
catch
I will come to that. So about perception of the future. Astrology, sadhana, perception of the future.
Sir, about the same research,
Yes.
you said that we sensed it about 6 hours ago.
Yeah.
But what I think is maybe if there is a natural disaster going to happen, then we can sense the vibrations. It was human attack. So what's your thought on it?
Yes, in principle, you can develop the capacity. I'll come to this. Last from the lady.
So I just want to add to her question
Yes.
that she talked about astrology, but some people, I mean, in Indian families, our parents choose our partner. So that clarity, we choose it because even
Okay.
yesterday he was teaching in Arvind way, even for your career and everything, he said to follow your heart. So I'm just adding.
Okay, be very careful. I never said follow your heart. Okay, I said that is dangerous. Don't trust your emotions, I said. Remember? Okay, but I said follow your soul's aspiration, which is different from heart. Or you see, we have to be very careful with the vocabulary. The Western vocabulary is very shallow because the bulk of the civilization has been turned outward. The Indian vocabulary of yoga particularly has a very rich vocabulary to describe internal states as well as internal experiences, and that's the vocabulary of yoga, which does not have an equivalent in the Western vocabulary. So when you take ideas or words from there, be very careful. Heart, okay, let me play with another word, love. I love my dog. I love to eat ice cream. I love you. Same word, love, totally different meaning, right? Among Eskimos, they say they have 25 words for ice, snow. Why? Because they have very different experiences of snow, because they have to live in snow and live by snow and die by snow. So the distinctions are important, vocabulary fills it. So the same way, where a civilization has dedicated itself to inner quest, it has built up a rich vocabulary. Heart is only a biological beating vehicle. That is then extended to an emotional center in the Western vocabulary. So when I say my heart is aching, I might talk of a heart attack or my heartbreak of emotion. You can't distinguish, it's the same word. But in the Indian languages, we have very clear terms, and we have a special term which is the inner being, antakarana. Okay, that means inside, in my psychology, deep inside, not in my surface emotions either. Okay, and so you have a heart which is a physical heart, you have an emotional heart, you have an inner heart, and then behind it all, you have the soul's aspiration. That you can trust. All else will deceive you in some way or other, more or less. Okay, so follow the deepest truth within you, but it's not your emotional heart. Okay, so I come back to the now, link all these things. When the question of marriage or astrology, what is astrology and how does it work? This is the question to ask. And I've actually experimented with this over a few years. I studied the whole science, and then I was with a person who was a master astrologer. He was really amazing. And I can, unfortunately, he's died. Otherwise, I would have even suggested to play a few experiments with him. But all astrologers are not like that. Most are just following the rule of the thumb, which is mostly wrong. But what he could do, I gave him a chart and I said, describe this person. And he was able to physically, accurately describe the physical appearance with some key elements, their children, and he could pick out one of the children had some problems psychologically, etc. All those things, remarkable. But this kind of capacity is very rare. But how does it work? You must understand, astrology does not determine you. Astrology reflects your condition. Okay? It's an indice, it's an indicator of an appearance. So if I see you come in a car which has a lot of scratches and a lot of red wheels, red dust on it, and I'm in Pondicherry, I say, oh, you've just been to Auroville. Right? That's how astrology works. But you could have faked it. You could have put red paint, or you could have gone there last week and come now without cleaning your car. And you said, no, I was not in Auroville, I was in Kadlur. Okay? So it's a bit like omens. Omens indicate what's happening. It's like the number 6 I dangled, the fellow caught. He couldn't make out what it was. He couldn't make out the source. So remember, any indicators can be hacked, and they are inherently indicators and not determiners. So when an astrology chart tells you this is a difficult period, and why do they say it's a difficult period? There are certain planets which have strong negative influences. For example, Rahu influences with chaos, exaggeration, confusion, and sometimes, not always, but Saturn tends to be very demanding and tough in the messages and lessons that it teaches you, makes you engage with life, with matter, with struggle. Okay? Now, you can look at that and say, oh, this is a bad period. Or you turn it around and say, wow, this is a fascinating period where I'm going to learn lots of real life-engaging lessons. Right? Is it good or bad? Depends on your attitude. All you can say is this is a period when you'll have a lot of uncertainties and chaos. Probably. Not always. All it shows, it's like weather prediction. You look at the clouds and you can say maybe in 1 hour it will rain. Sometimes the clouds pass and no rain. Right? Sometimes it rains, but not in 1 hour, after 5 hours. There is a science to weather prediction. There is a science to stock market prediction, but it's not an accurate science, it's an indicative science, and that's what astrology does. It indicates trends of subtle energies and their currents in the universe. They impact you. What you do about it is your freedom and your choice. Now, if it rains, astrologer says, well, 1 hour from now, I'm just exaggerating, but he's seeing this trend. So 1 day from now, 1 month from now, you have this period, Rahu. Let's say it's like rain. You will not go out of your house. You cannot go out of your house. But you can prove him wrong. Right? You just go out, you prove him wrong. You have freedom. If it rains, you won't go out, very likely. But if I say you won't go out, you take an umbrella and walk out. Or you say, I forget the umbrella, I walk out and get wet. you're free. Nothing can stop you. Understand, in astrology, it describes trends of influences acting on you. What you do about it is your freedom. This is extremely important. The moment you bind yourself to an astrology chart or prediction, and the prediction could be wrong because the fellow is wrong or your chart is wrong or is interpreted wrong, by binding yourself, you're becoming a victim. My recommendation to you, and I've studied astrology and I'm saying this from experience, do not turn to astrology or palmistry or any of these predictive methods. Because the fact that somebody says it is going to act on you as a force and make you doubt, make you question, and create trouble for you. If you didn't know it, you would feel free and you would act with greater freedom. I'll give an example. When an astrologer, or when a doctor for that matter, tells you something, they put a force. A doctor says, don't worry, you will get well. You feel good immediately, right? Now imagine you tell the doctor, sorry, I won't take your medicine. Then you will die in 10 days. You see? Astrologer says, you'll have an accident in 10 days. He wants it to be true. He wants you to come back after 10 days and say, yes, you were right, I got my accident. So he's putting his force that it should be true. It's a curse. He may not realize it. He's cursing you when he's telling you that. And the same way when the doctor says, you will fall sick, you will die. I've actually heard doctors say this. I'm not exaggerating. There's somebody who was on the machine for breathing and the doctor said, you take her off, in 2 hours she will die. Are you God? You know the body. You've not even met the patient. He's just going by papers he's read. Completely false. But it's a curse. Do not expose yourself to the curse of an astrologer. Whether it's good or bad, it's still a curse. It is interfering with your freedom. And if he tells you you will have an accident for the next 1 month, you'll be thinking, where is the accident? Where is the accident? And you'll make it happen. And when it happens, you'll say, see, he had said it. Now I must go back to him and ask for the next prediction, which I will make sure it becomes true. Please do not go to astrologers. Now comes to the matching of charts. In the chart itself, by the way, there are 32 parameters that they can match. Okay? And what do they say? If we can get a match of more than whatever percentage, that's good enough. It's the speech of the incompetent. Worse, if the other side pays the astrologer, hey, come on, make it match. He will make it match. Okay? Which parameters are matching, which are misaligned, he is not even bothered to ask you what is important for you. Now, if in the chart you find a strong match on a level of which is, let's say, earthy physical energies, are you compatible together when you're physically aligned, but intellectually you're not aligned. Oh, I got 1 out of 2 correct. So what does it matter? But you live in your mind, your values are stronger for mind and the physical, and you say, this guy knew that I was not aligned intellectually, and yet he said, okay, because I got 1 out of 2 right. It's stupid. So again, yes, there is a science to it, but it's much better if you are able to make a personal contact and feel what feels right. But the feel will not happen by just matching superficially. It will come by a deeper sense of an intuition, which will come from deep within you. Okay? I'm going to give another example. I don't know if I mentioned this the first day, but I was in a meeting in France and we were discussing, and I think I mentioned this. Somebody said, I met so-and-so and all my cells were jumping all over the place and I knew it was my soulmate. So I listened to all that. And they were talking all kinds of rubbish. Like many people gave examples like this. Finally, those people said, you just say something. I said, if I say something, it will go against what you're saying. No, say it. I said, okay. So when you met X, all your cells started tingling, right? And you say it's your soulmate. I'll say, no, it's your cellmate. If it was a soulmate, your soul should have been tingling, right? Oh, they never thought of it. See, this is the mistake made. And then I got into the discussion. I said there are 4 kinds of affinities. There is a physical affinity. You feel good together. Maybe your cells are tingling when you're together. Great. Then there's a vital affinity. And will that last? And then there's a mental affinity. Is that even present? Did you even bother to check? And then there is a deeper spiritual or soul affinity. And you didn't even become conscious of your soul. How will you speak of your soul affinity? Right? You're too busy in the excitation. We went for a walk, we went to dancing to X club and came back. Hey, this is fun. We had great fun. Let's get married. No, it's not going to work. Because you only assessed yourself on whether you could have some excitation together, but you could have that with 20 other people. What's the big deal? Right? There's another example I give you because it's about marriage family. And this is a serious issue all of you will have to face at some point or the other. There's this girl who the family got her an alignment. It was about to be an arranged. So the best arrangement is when the family is involved, because generally your parents know you better than you know yourself. And they've seen you go through many phases. And grandparents even better because they've seen how life works and what lasts, what doesn't last. So when grandparents say, yeah, this is a good match, pay attention. Okay? But don't decide. Having come to the first level of filtration and you've got a good match grandparents agree to, then you assess, does it feel right? Okay, but I'm coming to this now. So this girl, she met the guy, she said, it felt okay. I had nothing particular. I didn't feel any excitement. I find him boring. So I don't want to get married. So I told her, look, your parents took a long time to find this guy. There's obviously something they're feeling which is suitable. But remember one thing, when you get married, you will not be living in excitement. You'll be living together practically 24 hours a day for the next 50 years. You will know everything about each other to the point of boredom. The question is, can you sit together doing nothing and be content in calm? If you can do that, then you have a potential for a stable marriage. If you need excitement, or if you have excitement now, the excitement will exhaust itself eventually, and eventually you'll miss the excitement, you will fall apart eventually. So the reference is the ability to be together in calm, say nothing, do nothing, and just be happy together. Is that working? Deep inside there's a resonance, we're content, then you're likely to have a good match. You understand the thinking is completely different from what people are showing you in the cinema. Oh, we looked at each other, we were so excited, we fell in love. Oh. I give another example. This was in that meeting in France. One lady said this. She met someone and she felt so awakened spiritually. She decided she had to get married to him. She got married to him. The marriage broke after 4 years. And after our discussions, she said, now I understand. There are these 4 different affinities, and with him it was a spiritual affinity. Marriage was not the right thing. I should have maintained the spiritual relation with him. Interesting. So I'm giving you a pointer. Become conscious of these 4 tendencies, aspects within you, and watch for a complete, increasingly more complete alignment on these 4. Sometimes you have an affinity on 2 or 3 parts, but not on 4th. If you have affinity all 4, perfect. Even then, what happens? You're going this way, someone else is going that way. There's a moment when you cross each other and you're together with perfect alignment. But 2 years later, you've drifted apart in completely different directions, right? So, key element finally will be, do you have aspiration which is aligned? Your deepest, highest, truest aspiration, is it in the same direction? Is it aligned? And even with that, understand your pace of growth will not be aligned. One will grow faster, another will grow slower. There will be gaps. But if you're moving in the same direction, you will help each other and nourish each other. That will be a healthy and lasting marriage. If your aspirations and priorities are differently crossed, even if you have affinities right now, it's not going to last. And understand this becomes more complex today because we are much more individualized. In the past, it was almost a requirement that women were brought up suppressed in their individuality. To make a stable marriage was critical, okay, because often land properties and inheritances were tied to the marriage being healthy. And so someone had to give in to someone else. And it was easier for the woman to give in because she's naturally more adjusting. So make sure she's not too individualized, not too demanding, and she will learn to adjust. And this was also the basis for early marriages. So as you grow, you kind of grow into each other. You never even know what it's like to be independent. Great. Stability in society. That was one of the priorities. Not always, and there are always individuals who stood out. But today, the cycle of human evolution is different. Individualism and the development of intellect is a necessary part of our evolution. With that, all marriages have become unstable because we are both too individualized. And this is a practical reality you must understand. And therefore, be very careful. Do not jump in because your cells are tingling. Don't have a cellular marriage, but look for something more deep, more lasting, more real. And this can be assessed only when you're very quiet together. It's not assessed in a state of excitation. That also you check. Can we have fun together? Yes, great. But can we be quiet and do nothing together and feel comfortable? That will be one of the deeper things. And if you're very quiet after that, you go out, sit quietly and deep within you. And we discussed this the first day. If you feel a clear sense, yes, this is correct, then you follow that. If something within you says no, something is not okay, trust that and wait. Either for a correction in this or in another match, whatever form it takes. So I think this was my overall sense for the astrology question. And the question about the sadhana, and we use this word, any dedicated, concentrated effort is sadhana. It need not always be spiritual. So in the Indian tradition, we speak about a sadhana for music or for dance or to become a doctor or to become a sculptor, musician, whatever it is. The pursuit in which you develop yourself to your full potential in a concentrated way. You follow a discipline which leads you to a growth and an outcome. That is a sadhana. In the spiritual context, it can take specific forms. And again, the forms are not important. What is important is this concentrated, one-pointed focus of a discipline through which you experience growth. Discipline in itself is pointless. I can have a discipline every morning. I wake up at 4 o'clock and do X, Y, Z, but nothing has changed. Something is wrong. Set it right. You have to experience growth, then it becomes a sadhana. And at the end of a week, month, a year, you should be able to look back and say, I'm not the same person anymore. I've grown much more rapidly than if I had not done this sadhana. That would be a sadhana. Okay? And inevitably, any sadhana you take, even if it is for music, at the core of it, what will make it worthwhile will be the spiritual dimension. Is it aligned with your soul's aspiration? And if it is, then irrespective of what you do, you will grow and you will have deep satisfaction and fulfillment like nothing else can give you. Okay. Coming to that last question about perceiving of the future. Yes, I want to extend this a little more. I mentioned last time that the US military developed this technology for remote viewing. You remember that? And they could see not only far away, but also future and past. In fact, this ability exists in all of us. And I've actually attempted the remote viewing course. You will find it online. It's called CRV, Coordinate Remote Viewing. There are many websites which teach this. You'll find free courses as well as paid courses. You can go through a process. You don't understand what you're doing. You go through the process, you end up with a picture, and the picture describes that thing, whatever the target is. Very often you don't know what you've drawn, but when you're shown the target, finally you say, oh my God, this matches exactly. Fascinating. Okay? It works. The point is we all have the ability. But I'm coming to something more important. Understand you can sense the future, the ability is there, and you can develop it. Great. But understand something more important. You can create the future. You can change the future. Despite astrology, as you remember, astrology is describing trends of forces on you. You can choose, assert, and change everything. And there are literally examples of this where people have, in astrology, palmistry, they've been told you have a very short life. The fellow actually ended up overcoming everything. And how does it work? This is very important to understand. Astrology, as well as the immediate foresight of the future sense, is all working at the domain, remember, at the point just before you wake up from sleep. So it's the domain closest to matter, of life energy is closest to the physical. That's the level at which astrology works. As long as you live by your instincts and desires and drives of passions, you are totally predictable, not only by astrology, but by AI, which is watching you. Okay, they're equivalent almost today. The moment you rise above those drives and passions, you say, I have this intense passion to give you a blow, but I choose to hold myself back. You've broken the predictability. Okay? What then gives you freedom? The first point where you begin to gain true freedom is when you start thinking for yourself and rationalizing. Okay? The moment you've come into mind awareness and make that the higher determinant for your choices, you've already broken out of astrology and AI predictability. Fascinating. And I want you to highlight this very much for your life. Anytime you have a passion, drive, impulse of any kind, stop, disengage from the impulse, stand back above, think with clarity. Assess the value of the impulse. Is it coming from my desire, drive, or a deeper influence of the soul's aspiration, or even something else? Choose then consciously. If you can do this, you've already made your first step to freedom. Astrology stops working for you. It's very simple. Understand how it works. State of mind awareness is enough to help you recover your freedom. But that's not yet the true freedom. The true freedom comes when you go still higher up and inward to your soul, which is the only thing which is truly free in the spiritual consciousness. But you have approached it by coming into mind. But this point you must understand. Everywhere, your freedom starts first when you come into mind. All lower ranges, you do not have freedom. Look at humanity, which lives by passions and desires. We call them what? Barbarians, uncivilized. How do they settle scores? Who will be king? We will fight with blows. Whoever kills the other fellow now becomes king. Come on. That's not your measure for wisdom, right? Physical strength is not measure for wisdom. A civilized culture will then use an assessment which is of intelligence or knowledge or experience, etc. It will always be mental. The distinction between the civilized human and the uncivilized is the development of mind or not. This is key. That's where your freedom starts. But not yet mastery. Mastery comes from one more step, inward, upward. Okay? So yes, we can perceive things, but more than that, what is important, you can change things and build your future. So do not look for means to know the future. Rather, develop the capacity to form your future. This is what will make you a creator and not a slave who is now stuck in a groove, following the future which is already foreseen. Okay? You got the point, the difference I'm highlighting. Build your capacity to create your future. Okay, let's take the next few questions. Okay.
If all animals are able to sense the future thing,
Yes.
then what are humans lagging?
Why are humans lacking?
I mean, they don't have any consciousness or any sadhana or anything.
Animals can sense future because their intelligence is not developed. So they feel and they act spontaneously. They don't know why they are doing it. That is the difference between instinct and intuition. Okay? So you've heard both terms, instinct and intuition. And when they say gut feel, that is instinct. What happens in a gut feel? I feel scared, but I don't know why. Animal says, I feel scared, I have to run in this direction. There I feel is danger, I don't know why. That's instinct. Intuition is the very opposite. Let me explain. In this impulse, there is an impulse to do something, and then there is a knowledge of why. In the gut feel or in the instinct, you have impulse and the knowledge is hidden inside. You cannot tap it. In the intuition which comes, your first knowledge, oh, this is what's going to happen. And then from it flows the impulse to action. So remember, impulse to action and knowledge, these are twins. This is, you will see in the Indian tradition, the children of Shiva and Parvati, Ganesha and Kartikeya. What is their relationship? Ganesha is knowledge, Kartikeya is force, dynamism of action. That's why fire. Huh? And you know the incident which took place? These are very profound stories. You know the incident? They had a competition. So who will go around the world fastest? Kartikeya jumps on his peacock, flies around the whole world and comes back. And what does Ganesha do? He has his mouse, he sits on his mouse and goes around Parvati and has completed the turn of the world because she is Prakriti, she is nature and the whole world is within her, right? Use of knowledge. Now, in fact, these two are always together. See, even in the Puranas, in the Vedic concept, Agni is knowledge and heat, light and heat, knowledge and force, both together. In a flame, we are both, right? In the Purana, they get split into two beings. But finally, you see their unity is what works. Within us, it's the same thing. In our higher parts, the knowledge you have becomes the action spontaneously. As the knowledge enters your mind, you have knowledge followed by action. But if the knowledge finds in the mind is not developed, it goes down to the belly, into the life force. There, knowledge has no place. There is no place for light. Only the impulse for action comes forward. And you feel, I'm afraid, I have to rush, I have to run away, I don't know what's happening. You move out and then the building collapses. How did you know? I didn't know, I just felt fear. Right? That's instinct.
Then did primitive man feel anything like
Primitive man had that. Primitive man was very close to the animal life, they felt it. That's how it worked, yes. Next question. We'll pick lady.
So I have three parts to what I'd like to ask. Firstly, there are popular contrasting opinions about how you should have things in common with your partner and how you should have differentiating qualities that help you grow as a person. So is having things in common with your partner a test of compatibility, and where do you draw that line? And secondly, do gender roles in a relationship still exist in the current day and time? Thirdly, this is more on the lines of work satisfaction. Since you mentioned when we have short-term goals, we achieve them and then it fades away, the feeling fades away. So what is your outlook on motivation and goal setting? Exactly how do we set goals and stay motivated with the profession?
Okay, very important questions, all three. So first, I'll start with the third question, which is about goal setting. I said short-term goals do not give you the same satisfaction as something which is larger, not just long-term, but larger goals instead of narrow goals. That's one thing. Narrow versus large goal is one thing. When a goal benefits many more than just you, you have also greater satisfaction and joy. That's one. But short-term, long-term also makes a difference. Long-term goals will give you a broad direction, but to get there, you will have many short-term goals. Understand all of these are useful because they help you focus your energies. But in themselves, they may not be essential. So use them, and if they don't always work out, don't worry. Don't make a big deal about it. Rather, always find the balance between the long-term goal and the short-term goal. If you find that sometimes the short-term goal goes too far away from the long-term direction, you may choose even to modify it or even discard it. The short-term ones you can change as required. Look at the benefit. If it's helpful, keep. If not, modify it. Not a problem. But the long-term direction would still be broadly in the sense which you feel from deep within you. So, yes, use every means that helps, but don't become obsessed with it. Because often we get so lost in the short-term goals, we forget the larger picture. Why am I doing this business? I'm making so much money. I have so much stress. I'm suffering so much. I have no family time. Why did I take up the business? Review that. And then if needed, you find a via media. You may actually choose a business where you get less money, but you have the satisfaction of family time, if that is important for you. So always, every now and then, step back and review everything. And even, I would say, reset the broad sense of what the long-term goal is, because you have changed. When you were 10 years old, maybe you looked at your future and said, I am going to be a pilot. And then when you're 20, you say, pilot is not so interesting anymore. It's a glorified taxi driver. Now I'm going to say, so it's a very punishing job, but very important, responsible. But end of the day, that's not what I want really, because you have changed, you've grown. So you may need to reassess, and that's okay. Understand that you have not become fully individualized yet, or you have not yet fully aligned with your deeper aspiration. You're still in a growth phase. And so you may have to review some of your goals, but always, if you're going to review, make sure it comes from a deeper perspective and not from a more superficial perspective. I've seen many cases where people in younger age had a clearer sense of the direction of their goal. Once they went through formal college education or university, they got so programmed they fell off track. And that's sad to see. They've actually lost themselves more. So if you can do that, you're fine. Coming to your first two questions, very important. The one is, what is the basis of affinity in a partnership, whether commonalities or differences or what combination, and second is gender roles and their place. The first, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this and maybe go beyond the question, because I think it will be helpful for everybody, and it deals with the larger scope of relationships and partnerships also, but in particular in this case for marriage and the long-term partnerships of life. So, first recognize that there are couples who are completely different and very happy together. And there are couples who are very similar to each other and very happy together. So the secret is not in how similar you are or how different you are. The secret is, because all these similarities and differences you're seeing from the surface, the secret is the deeper alignment of an inner affinity. When the inner affinity is there, if you have many outer differences, the outer differences surround the inner affinity and they become complementary. Interesting. The same if there is no inner affinity, the outer differences become contradictory. So I'm going this way, you're going that way. We're in contradictory differences, right? You'll never meet. No. If the center of you is common, you go this way, I go this way, we complete each other in a larger movement. So always the reference for long term will be a deeper affinity. On the basis of that, if you have external differences of approach or interests, they become complementary, they enrich each other's lives. If the inner centering and alignment is not there, they'll become causes for differences and conflicts. Okay. Similarly, if you have a lot of similarities, if the inner alignment is not there, even with a lot of similarities, you'll fall apart. That's not a reference also that you live together. I'm bored. He's doing exactly the same thing. That friend of mine is doing so many more adventures which I can't do. That's more interesting. You see, you're always looking for growth, but there's no inner affinity. But if there is inner affinity, it doesn't matter. You will work together one way or other. So always look for the deeper first. When you match from inside out. And I'm going to extend this a step further even in business partnership. So a business partner is like a marriage partner practically, except you're sharing responsibilities which have to do with projects and money. You have to trust each other totally. If you cannot be a partner. Or you'll have a massive breakup later of some kind, which is painful, which will destroy the business. So even there's similar issues. Look first for the inner alignment. What that inner alignment is in a business context is different now. In a business context, if your startup is, let's say we're going to build something which is highly intellectual software abstraction, then look for the joy that you have in that idea. If you share that deeper joy and sense of worth of those ideas, it's going to work out irrespective of all other things. And if you're very different, wonderful, you'll create a whole new wing in our business, thing which we have never done before, right? But we're aligned on this. Steve Jobs often used this as a reference. Are you passionate about? That's how they word it. But what does it mean to be passionate? I'm just excited to see new technology. No. So that's that deeper alignment of the creativity. What he was looking for, something aligned to his, and then the rest will fall into place. And the same it is when, if let's say your goal was physical, we want to create a whole new model for farming. Are you passionate about earth? Do you feel just such joy to see plants grow? Yes, that's the alignment. Around this, it can work. You understand? Also, core values. Somebody says, no, I will not compromise on certain things. The other says, it doesn't matter. You compromise on anything, just get your job done. If there's a misalignment there, that person will compromise on you eventually. You see? So again, all these things apply to any long-term partnership, and especially in marriage, all these things will matter. So the first question, I think, broadly is answered. The second part of it is gender roles. It has now become fashionable in what is referred to as the woke ideology to try to blur out gender differences. And the word gender itself has now been made so confusing that you actually don't know what they're talking about. So in some article, and I heard this with shock from somebody who's heading a newspaper, and she was telling me, oh, now in America, they have found 64 different genders. What? You lost your mind. And the same problem with what happened in the Olympics now. There's this person who was brought up as a girl because her organs had not properly developed, but chromosome was XY. So she had the build of a man, testosterone, muscle of a man. Finally, she's a man because of XY chromosome. So just because of that, well, she beat the other woman hollow, because fundamentally there's a difference in the build once you grow fully in between the male and the female, and it all boils down to chromosomes, XX or XY. That's it. Two genders, nothing more at a biological level. Okay, so they'll say, yes, but it is psychological. Fine, then don't call it gender. So use a different word. If you're going to redefine a word and create confusion, then you are deliberately creating a confusion. So I want to make three distinctions to help clarify this whole matter. First is biological differences. There is XX chromosome, XY chromosome, there is no third. Yes, there is something called XXY, etc., but those are so rare, it's nothing to do with what we are discussing. Okay, biologically there are two. Second is psychologically. Now, psychologically, you can say that I have a feminine characteristic in the way I work. I have a sensitivity which is feminine, etc. Okay, feminine is masculine is qualities, right? There you have a spectrum. In the extreme, you might call a masculine. In extreme, you might call a feminine. And everybody has both of these to some degree and different blends. No problem at all. And I would even recommend develop fully the spectrum of your psychological flexibility. It's not gender fluidity. Be careful. This is flexibility in your psychology. Can you act with power and force and focus, which you would normally call masculine? Or can you act with an embracing and absorbing, deep sense of closeness, oneness, and identification, empathic? You would call that normally feminine. I avoid those terms. I would just describe the qualities, because finally it's a blend and you should be able to develop all these. Wait, there's a third which is critical, and that's where all the confusion comes. That is sexual orientation. You have sex with this type or that type or whatever. That has nothing to do with the second or the first, finally. Of course, it has to do with the first, because finally we are biologically rooted. The sexual attraction is biologically rooted. And the game they've been playing, which is extremely dangerous, is in the United States, and it's spreading into India now. In kindergarten, they start telling you, you can choose your gender. You're not at an age when you know what it means. You don't know what it means. And then you're being asked, oh, I'm not a boy. And the child said, I'm not a boy. Why? Because boy is little one. I'm not. I'm big. You have little children at the age of 4 or 5. When I was small, I used to do this. Now I'm big, right? Says, I'm not a boy. And the mom said, oh, he's not a boy, he's a girl. Started dressing up like a girl. She's a film actress, so it became famous. No, that's not right. And what happens? Because up to a certain age, the biology is largely similar. When the differences kick in, that's when it matters. And when they kick in, there's a period which is extremely confusing, emotionally also, because suddenly your hormones are coming in and you're feeling things. And at that point, changes are taking place. You can say, but I don't want this change. It feels strange. And if at that point someone says, oh yes, see, you are gender different, and now we're going to give you hormones and chemicals to make you more male or female or whatever it is that at this moment you think you are, that's going to destroy your biology for good, because your biological impulse, which is based on chromosomes, does not change by pumping of hormones, and later you end up with severe problems, disabilities, illnesses. Everybody who's gone through hormone therapy of this kind ends up regretting, and afterwards they have severe sicknesses. Do not wait. Simply wait. Allow nature's rhythm to take you where it takes, and eventually you'll find your base and balance. Very simple. And so when it comes to the sexual orientation, which is whether you are attracted to a man or a woman or whatever, at that point, whatever it is, it is. And it's, by the way, it is changeable. People get upset if you say it, but it's changeable. Sri Aurobindo gives this very interesting example. You put a large number of men on an island where there are no women. After a while, the sex drive will turn upon each other. They'll become homosexual. You bring them out from the island. Now they mix with the rest of humanity. They'll go back to their normal trends. The impulse exists for its own satisfaction. If it does not find outlet in where it would normally, it finds other outlets. That's all it is. It's no big deal. Do not make a big deal about sexuality. Do not reduce yourself to sexual orientation. You are far greater than the sex instinct, which is a very tiny part of your biological life. Really tiny part. And as you grow up and maybe you get married, you have children, it will become the least important part of your life. There's so much more that is important for you. So do not make this mistake which comes with all of these woke ideologies, and with that now suddenly it's become a big drama around it. which is very perverse and confusing. It's intended to confuse. So I'm giving you this three different things: biology, psychological flexibility, openness, and sexual attraction, which is a very different story. Do not confuse these three different things. The same word gender is used for all this, and if you try to correlate across the three, you will end up confusing. No, they're different things. Psychologically, there was a time when gender roles were rigid because of the nature of life. Let me elaborate on this. A woman, temperamentally, biologically, for the same age or genetics, will be slightly shorter than a man. Muscular strength will be weaker, softer, etc. So if it comes to blows, the woman will be defeated for the same age and biology, generally, let's say. So as it happens, in a state of war, when you could be attacked and overwhelmed by the enemy, the first thing you needed to do was put the men in front. Gender role, because of the differences. Second, which was more critical even, if everybody dies in the war, only the woman can give birth. Protect the women and children. So this is standard procedure across all civilizations. If there is war, women and children go to the center, surrounded by the men in the fort or whatever form it takes. Men will die to protect the women and children because you're protecting life in the future. Very simple. That's your gender role. Okay. Second, in the instinct which is built into the gender, nature has put certain tendencies. A woman inherently, because she has to give birth, and men don't give birth, in spite of what they may say in the woke ideology, men don't give birth, okay? So, sorry, if this is ever put online, you'll get banned for saying it. But it's a reality. Women, because they give birth, are also designed by nature spontaneously to have the sense of identity with the child. Because at the point when the child is born, is not able to speak, you have to feel, why is he crying? Is he crying because he's hungry? He's crying because it's noisy? He's crying because it's too hot or too cold? She feels it. And she is designed from early stage of development to feel empathically. Whereas the male is set by nature again to protect. Now you look at how a woman's instinct works in a marriage, in a relationship. If the man is not strong and she has to protect him, she will never feel free. She'll never feel secure to have a family. But if she is with a partner who's strong in his masculine characteristics and takes responsibility for her future and protection, spontaneously she goes into this mode, now I can nest. And she is ready to have a child. That's how it works. And remember, this is billions of years of evolution through animal stages. Nature has formed these tendencies. Now today you can say, I'm going to rise out of the instinct. Yes, to an extent you can. But also when you do nothing and make no effort, this is the basis on which you begin. So we understand how it works. And of course it's possible for a woman equally to take charge and for the man equally to look after the child, but he will not have the same level of empathy that she would have. So there is an optimization nature has made. I'm coming to something very important. This was the rhythm and pattern until now. What has happened more recently is that nature herself has as if decided that now a new breakthrough, a shift in the evolution has to take place, in which the distinction between men and women and their roles will no more be so rigid. And this has become possible because of certain balance of development of circumstances in humanity, where you don't think, oh, tomorrow there might be an invasion, right? And you have equally the possibilities to develop yourself. So one of the reasons why women were also kept somewhat depressed in their individuality, because this was the circumstance then. Today there is a necessity evolutionarily for women equally to develop individuality as men and find the full spectrum of their capability, even for men to develop the full spectrum of capability, whatever that may be for you, irrespective of where you start. Remember, whatever your biological basis, it's a starting point. Psychologically, you have infinite potential because your soul is infinite potential. You are first and foremost a soul and not a boy or a girl or a man or a woman. A soul that has taken on this machinery and identity and could have, if it wanted, chosen a different gender to take birth in, which also happens. And we have, all of us, experienced both genders at some time or other. And at some point, the soul says, no, I like this particular line of development better. So broadly, it takes more often one side than the other. But remember your first soul with infinite potential. And the vehicle that you have, which includes the gender and the characteristics inherited, including gender impulses, I won't say role. Role is imposed from outside. The impulse and tendency within you to be mothering, for example, is a need which comes in most women. But in some, it's not so strong. No problem. And there are some men who have also a strong impulse to be fathering, but not all. So observe the tendencies and also make choices. Just because there's an impulse doesn't mean you have to follow it. Because the same impulse can work out different ways. For example, a mothering impulse, you may actually end up having one child. You may have, say, I have a very strong mothering impulse. I want to have 20 children. Yes, you can, of course, but turn that impulse larger. Now have 20 children in your school. So I had this conversation with a person long ago. It was fun. He was saying, oh, so and so, he has 3 children, but he's not married. They're with his 3 dogs. So I said, I have 20 children every year, and I'm not married. They are my school children, right? And I said, I outsource the child production, and I focus on the child training. So the same impulse, which might be a mothering impulse, actually can expand and even fulfill itself in a way which is far larger than just one child that you might have biologically, isn't it? So my point is, all of these tendencies which come with your turn of nature, swabhava, can outgrow narrow forms and widen out if that be your interest and your inclination also. And in this sense, if you understand these turn and tendencies of gender, you will find it is a strength and not a weakness. Okay? So it is a necessity, and the mother spoke of this very clearly, and she set the precedent in the Sri Aurobindo ashram here. And I'm going to give this example because it's so important. There was a lady, and she has recorded this. She was assisting the mother, and the mother would go to play tennis, and she had, in the ashram, when she created the physical training program, boys and girls equally would wear shirts and shorts and do all the activities: gymnastics, athletics, swimming, boxing, wrestling, judo, sword fighting, everything. And sometimes there was some girl who said, but my femininity is affected if I do exercise. Mother said, stop thinking whether you're a boy or a girl. Try to be a human being first. Okay? So it's a very different training. In the 1950s, it was revolutionary. And then there's this incident where she narrates, they were playing tennis. Mother would point to somebody far away and say, who is that person? And her attendant girl would tell her so and so. Another. So over a few weeks, mother was asking, and finally the girl asked, Mother, every time you point to someone, it's a woman. But you never point to a man and ask, who is that? So the mother explained, because she said when she sees a person, she didn't see only the biology, she also saw the full aura. Okay, and sometimes the aura can be quite bright. It can even kind of mask the physical body if you have the fully open vision. And she's looking at a person, and in the women, the individuality was not very formed, and so there was a blurry outline. It's difficult to make out who's the person. In the men, it was more formed. So she explained this. She said, for centuries, women have not been allowed to form their individuality. And then she said, now that I'm here, all this will change. And you will see how, starting in the 1950s, she set the precedent here. Everywhere in the world it has changed. People say, oh, 1960s, the pill made the revolution. No, it has nothing to do with the pill. It's an impulse put out in nature. That's why I said nature has decided now to change this balance, and women equally must develop their individuality. And the potential for a woman who has developed individuality, because she's more flexible also, is enormously greater than the man's individuality. I'm going to highlight this. There was a time long ago, and we still have memories of it in our civilization going back, when women dominated the development of the human potential. Because inherently a woman has far greater capacities. But during a certain phase, particularly the ascetic phase, and we saw because of certain external reasons, that balance had to change. Women had to be held back, protected because of certain passages of, barbaric invasions. that has changed again. And Sri Aurobindo again makes a comment about this, that it's very likely in the coming future, once again, women will take their preeminent role in human affairs. And this is a fact. Why? If you observe again carefully, in the way nature has endowed a woman, she is inherently capable of doing multiple things at the same time. For example, you've seen that child raising is one of the most difficult jobs. You can actually be not able to sleep at all for nights together and manage the entire household, food, nourishment, protection, and everything in one go and still be fresh and happy. Men cannot do that so easily. One of the interesting things you will notice, and there are lots of books about the biological differences of how this works. If two men are talking, one will talk, the other will listen. Then the other will talk, this one will listen. They go like this. When women are talking, they talk at the same time. And men look at that and they say, how can they be talking? Are they even listening to each other? But actually, it's a biological difference that women can speak and listen at the same time. When you do it, you don't think much of it, but when men see it, they don't understand it. And equally, there are certain advantages that men have which women don't. And these are biologically rooted. To give another example, you see maps. When you have to look at a map or your Google map on your screen, you inherently want to turn the map around to match it to the road in front of you. Right? Women do that. Men don't do that. Men can look at a map and turn it in their head. Women can't turn it in their head. Interesting. Can't? Biological instinct does not have it endowed already. Can't? No. They can if they train. Men can converse while talking and listening at the same time if they train. So here's the difference. And we come back to this gender roles. Nature has endowed certain advantages on each gender for specific reasons. There's no reason why I can't exceed that. And what I used to do with my students at the age of 10, 11, I would make them do things, and I found the struggle that girls often had. We would do Meccano kits and building 3D. You see a 2D image and you have to build a 3D Meccano structure. Boys got it, girls couldn't. Why? Because they had this problem rotating things in their head. And second, they couldn't feel empathy. They needed empathy. So I said, no, you don't build a truck. You build a garden. You build a flower and a plant. And immediately when they felt the connection, the girls would flow with it. And I got them off the text. But I saw one thing interesting. If you helped them a little bit initially and they made the effort, they could pick up the faculty quickly. And then they had the same advantage as the men. Not always. Not always the same. But they could build up. And the same for men. If there's a faculty which is not developed inherently, which is already there in women, you make the effort, you can build it. The question now comes back to what we discussed the first day. Will you stay in the rut that you have by birth and by heredity and natural instinctive impulses, or will you outgrow and attain to full mastery of your potential? That's what current evolution is aiming for. And that's why nature has chosen all of us have to build. So yes, now coming back to your question, I don't know if I've answered it or I've made it more complex. But you realize now, yes, there is a place for gender roles. And I would rather say, instead of thinking what those roles are, look at rather what is your deeper tendency, need, turn of nature, temperament, what gives you more satisfaction. Go ahead and fulfill that broadly, but as I showed you, there are many dimensions in which you can fulfill it. But widen it, make it more flexible, develop the faculties which you don't have, and grow into self-mastery in whatever way that is unique to you. And when it comes to a couple, if each one is in this movement of self-development and growth and self-mastery, you're a perfect couple. Because you will always outgrow your limitations and always grow into greater closeness, intimacy, and trust. But if one is growing and the other is not, the gap will grow so rapidly at some point you will be two different people. Maybe you still maintain your responsibility, but you won't have really a life which is together. Does that satisfy you? Okay. So it'll be the longish answer, yes.
Scriptures don't mention about divorce.
Yes.
Scriptures mention about polygamy and polyandry.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
this is a part of evolution.
Okay. So is polygamy, polyandry, what is its place? Let's put it that way in evolution. Yes, that's very much promoted today in the media and particularly in certain lines of cinema. And I want you to look at this from a different perspective. First of all, the value systems are different fundamentally here. What you see in the West that is being promoted in a lot of this cinema is coming from the value system which says you are just biology. What does it matter? Okay? But if you're psychology, if you're soul, if you have deeper aspirations, those matter. And if that goes contradictory to some outer tendency and impulse, trust the deeper, not the outer. So now I come to the polyandry, polygamy, etc. You look at nature. As you go down the gradations of evolution, let's say smaller fish, smaller animals, they have no lasting relationships. A frog hops around till it finds a mate, mates, moves on, mates with another, moves on. No distinction, nothing important. As you go up the chain in animal evolution, as they become more individualized and distinctive, they tend to stay with one mate for life. Okay? Swans, for example, will mate once for life. After that, they will never mate with another. Interesting. Did you know that? Penguins mate for life. Once they have mated, it's as if there's a bond. And I don't know if you've seen pictures or videos of penguins, 1,000 of them, all looking exactly the same. And this one, and generally it's the male who's sitting on the egg, and the female goes to get the food. She dives into the water, gets the food, and she comes back. The thousands of penguins going quack, 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 quack. And she's able to waddle through and get to her mate wherever he is. Find her way somehow. And many of these highly developed animals, they mate for life. If their mate dies, they don't mate again. Interesting. We see this also among certain apes, etc. But the idea here is, look at your deeper alignment. What is the sense of mating? Okay, if mating was mere instinctive reproduction, as may happen with frogs, that's nature using your instinct to ensure life continues. When you come into your own as an individual, you're not looking for just having casual relationships to produce offspring. You're looking for a deeper partnership and a relationship of trust, of intimacy, of deep relationship where literally you might want and feel like, I could share my soul with you. That's what your deepest instinct wants, isn't it? Someone I can trust with, someone I could be truly without fear and truly love without hesitation and never be hurt. You're looking for that? Agreed? Do you think that's possible with 10 people coming casually your way? No. Automatically, instinctively, if you are deeply centered, you will not be, or you will feel repelled even by the idea of polyandry, polygamy, and switching partners casually, because it does not align with that which you feel. If that has been hardened and covered up, it doesn't matter. If your deeper instincts have been flattened and you've lost the sensitivity, you're no more conscious of yourself, but then you're miserable. You feel used, you feel you cannot trust anybody, and you go through life bruised and damaged. And inevitably, you tend to attach yourself to other damaged people and live in damaged relationships. This is one of the reasons why traditionally, and I'm not speaking of scriptures are only an attempt to articulate what they thought was wise at that time. May be true for short term, may be true long term, may not be true. Let your deeper experience verify. So I'm going to put it in this way. As you turn to this life journey, let's say, and you're looking for somebody with whom you can have truly that deep relationship, and maybe you're hurt once, hurt twice, you're more careful in your selection, maybe it takes a long time to find the right kind of person, because unfortunately today's society is in a decline. Okay? So if you're more sensitive, finding a partner who's as sensitive is becoming more difficult. But trust that you will be helped. If you find somebody with whom you share that deeper intimacy, that's something which satisfies a deep ideal that resonates with your soul. Right? But if at some point you've been made to, because in early childhood you say, hey, experiment with drugs, experiment with smoking, experiment with alcohol, try once, what does it matter? No, it does matter. And I'll give you examples of how it matters biologically. If you've started experimenting, that mechanism of sensitivity has been dulled and hardened, then it doesn't matter. It's just one body replaced by another. What does it matter? Right? But that's unfortunately a hardened, superficial experience. You've lost something of your deeper sensitivity. That's also when you've lost the true joy. Because now, what's the point? it's meaningless, right? Now I'm coming to this question, what does it matter once? There's research, biological research, genetic research to show that if you smoke before the age of 21, it damages your genes in a way that stays permanent throughout your life. It's measurable by genetic measure after 20 years that you smoked before the age of 21. Why? I don't know. Even they don't know, but they found it is so. It's as if the genetic framework hardens and comes into its own around the age of 21, after which, if you were to smoke, the damage is not as great. Okay, so understand there's no such thing as try once, what does it matter? It does matter. Same for drugs. When you take certain drugs, and specifically certain drugs which are extremely damaging, what they do is they affect the brain's working in a way that changes the brain permanently. After that, your brain is not the same, and this can be seen in an MRI scan, fMRI. And if you are careful, you can observe the psychological characteristics of the person, and you can make out, this tendency has come from the drugs they took in early childhood. And I've been able to do that. I've been able to recognize people through those interactions. Yes, that's what it is. I asked them, I verified. And they said, yes, I know I have this tendency since that time. Okay, do not play with it. Okay, third, alcohol. Alcohol, again, what's the harm? Try once. Each of these things is addictive. Inherently, all three things are addictive, and when they are addictive, in the very experience is something that hooks into you like a force, and it pulls you. And you notice alcoholics, they overcome, let's say, I've not had alcohol for 1 year, 2 years. When there's high stress, the craving comes for alcohol or smoking. What does it mean? That hook has not gone. The hook is now pulling you again. And to be able to cut it, if you see in Alcoholics Anonymous, the thing is, for life, you have to fight it. Do not play with these things. If you've already done, stop now. Each of these three things tends to make your mind more dull, less focused, less conscious, more unconscious. Okay? So even if you have been exposed to it, just say, no, I want self-mastery first. Having attained self-mastery, you can actually do anything you want, including these things if you wanted, but you wouldn't find these things so interesting because you'll have access to far more worthwhile experiences. So I've looked at these three things, but there's a fourth thing which is related, which also as in scripture they will say, and that's sometimes a moral thing, about casual sex, which again through cinema is being promoted. And again, I come to this deeper feel. If you feel the call of that deeper ideal, do not go for casual sex. I'll explain why. So, what happens with the penguins or with the swans? I said they mate for life. What's the mechanism nature uses? The swan doesn't think, hey, now that I've mated you, we're married for life, I won't look at anyone else. What's the mechanism nature is using to bind you? And this is the interesting thing. So, when you have your first sexual experience, what happens at that point is there is a huge release of hormones within you, and in the brain, a rush of signaling in which an imprint is made literally as if your partner is now etched into you. It's like you take a hot metal and push it against flesh and make an indent that stays for life. This is happening at a psycho-energetic level. The aura which you have, the individual bubble we saw that day here, that breaks. And everything inside you and in your partner flows into each other at a lower level, particularly energetically. And even at that point, the emotions of the other can flow into you. The psychological tendencies of the other can flow into you. If they have a tendency for violent rage, it can pop into you, and you'll find after 10 days, suddenly you have a tendency for violent rage. All this is material being exchanged. Why? Because nature is trying to create a bond of a unit which will span two people. That's the mechanism of bonding. So nature has built this mechanism so that when you mate for the first time, she will form this unit. And she will give you a high which lasts typically 1.5 years. You're in love. Suddenly everything is beautiful. And while that is lasting, that's when she ensures the child is born. Then both of you being just in love with each other, now become in love with the child. And that's how nature pulls you through a groove of stages to build the family unit. And at some point, the child is so important, even if you have differences, you stay together for the child. But I'm showing you the mechanism involved here. That mechanism, do not play with it. When you start having casual relationships, the mechanism is so blurred that afterwards you have lost the sensitivity of what it means to have a lasting bond or a lasting real connection or commitment. You'll see in cinemas, particularly Hollywood cinema, just before they're going to get married, they have the girls' night and boys' night, where they have strippers and all kinds of things. It's your last night when you can have sex with someone else. After that, you're bound like in a jail. What? If that's the meaning of marriage, it's pointless, right? The whole thing has been so warped and so perverted. I'm pointing it out to you so that you do not identify with those ideals. They're already warped ideals. They're a civilization which has lost its way. Let me assure you, Americans do not live like that as they show in cinema. You go to a normal college kid, they're confused like crazy by the cinema. They're trying to live up to it. It doesn't work. It doesn't match their deeper feelings. But the cinema is promoting it anyway. So they feel left out. They say, I am not normal. And when I meet those types, I say, no, you are more normal. That is not normal. Please trust what you have. Okay. So this is to remind you, be conscious that there is a mechanism. Don't break it. Use it rather. If you aim for a long-term relationship of a deeper kind. If you don't, it's a choice you make. But then be sure there are consequences. Both ways there are consequences. Be conscious of it. But don't believe the propaganda that comes through cinema. Similarly, there is a very important aspect to this which comes in the yoga training, which you will see in the phase in our tradition, which is called the Brahmacharya Ashrama. When you're a student, you're a Brahmachari. What does that mean? Brahmacharya, you draw on the Brahman, you draw on a deeper knowledge, on a deeper reality. You turn your studies towards a greater knowledge, greater growth and potential. That's Brahmacharya. But with it was celibacy. To the extent that Brahmacharya became identified almost with celibacy. Why? What was so important? And I want to highlight this. The material which the biology uses to reproduce, which is released during the sexual act, is very highly concentrated substance, which is exactly the same substance in its nutritional content and its psychological content as your brain. It's literally brain nutrition which will amplify your brain capacity, which is being thrown out in the sexual act. It's not just physical substance, there is also a psychological substance. You remember that day when we did this experiment, you fed the aura around you. Okay, and you fed this thick layer, dense layer. So substances of that grade also are thrown out in the act of procreation because all those things are used to form the child. That's why we inherit psychological tendencies from our parents, because the psychological substance also is given to you, not just genetic substance. Today they speak of epigenetics. It's like a new discovery for them. But this is what is contained also in the epigenetic material. The psychological content, the state in which you are when you had the sexual relation which produced a child is also impacting the child. If at that time you were undergoing stress, your child inherits the stress. This has been shown in the rats, by the way. You put rats through severe stress and get them to reproduce. Now you separate those rats from the second generation. They have never met their parents or their stress. They all have the same stress response. And goes down 2 generations at least with rats. For example, if the parents were made to feel electric shock every time they touched a red color wall, whatever the association. Those children now, when they approach the red color wall, they go into stress as if they're going to get a shock. How did they inherit this? And this is certainly nothing to do with genetics, right? So this psychological substance being thrown out. Now all of this, if you do it casually, at a time when your biology and psychology are still growing, it depletes. Just to give an extreme example, if you're trying to build your body strength and every day you give 2 liters of blood throwing out because it's pleasurable, I'll throw out 1 liter of blood. And I'm trying to build my body and become strong. How do you think it's going to happen? While you're building your body, you eat good food, you eat nourishing food, you contain your blood so that your body may be built. Once it's built, you can throw blood, your body will regenerate. It's something like this. So the idea was during your student phase, when you're still growing psychologically, biologically, and in your overall sense of individualization, you avoid anything in which you would break the individuality or weaken the life force that you're trying to concentrate for your growth. That was the concept. And what they explained, which is something very interesting, the material used undergoes a transmutation by conservation, what is spilt during the sexual act, transmutes and becomes material through gradations, rises up the spine until it feeds the brain. Now you notice the fact that the brain and the sexual organs are at the other two extremes of the spine for a good reason. Because from below it rises up to feed the brain. So when you do not spill it, your brain power amplifies. Literally you experience electricity and intensity of intelligence amplified. And you notice among your friends, those who fall in love and get into these casual relationships often tend to fall immediately in their performance in academics. Why? Even your power of intelligence weakens. You can't think clearly. Why? That's mechanism nature uses to make you fall in love by dulling the brain and the intelligence so that at that moment you get carried away in the moment, right? It's a bit like being inebriated at that moment. But this is to show you there's a whole biological basis, but also psycho-spiritual basis. And once you've built up the full intensity and your brain is fully formed, after that you're ready for the family life, you will not lose what you've gained. So be conscious of this. Many of you are still in the student phase, your bodies are still forming, your individuality is still forming. Sometimes things may happen. I'm not giving a moral turn to it. I'm giving a practical turn to it, which is conserve your energies, direct them for building your capacity. And then you'll find your way. But to understand all this is important. Do not believe the propaganda. Again, it comes from a lot of Western literature. They'll say, the more sex you have, the more you'll feel good, the more feel-good hormone is released, the more that is released. Yes, but it's like saying, in my house, I can burn all the furniture and have lots of heat. And then what happens after that? I have no furniture left. So you just release all the feel-good hormones. What's that? What's the hormone? Dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. All that is released, and then suddenly you have a low followed because there's nothing left. It's all been used up in the act. Now I'm feeling miserable, and it takes a while to build up. They don't tell you that, right? So be careful about the propaganda. Propaganda has its own objectives, and one of the objectives is to control you. The more you spill your energy and become driven by instinctive drives and desires, the easier you are to control. And the elites want you as controllable sheep. They don't want you individualized. They don't want you strong. They don't want your power of intellect to amplify. And so they will have you already starting it soon. In the United States, it is sad to see at the age of 9 and 10, they are given condoms, experiment. It's the surest formula for having low IQ and low development of body capacity. Because before even the energies could build, listen, for men, for example, testosterone builds your muscles. You start having premature sex, all the hormones are going to be flat. You will not build, your body will be stunted in growth. And your intelligence more than that, they want to master your mind. So these are all very wrong and dangerous in what's being done. And I'm making you aware, once you understand this basis, remember, you have to choose whether you want to master. Okay, I think, did I satisfy the question? Yeah? One more at the back. Yeah. I'm trying to hop around for the questions. So yes,
yes, over the last few days, you've been speaking about purpose, your life's alignment with the greater goal. Aimless life is a meaningless life.
Yes, miserable life.
Miserable life, so in everything. But I want you to specifically touch upon talent and skill. And how does it matter? Or do we get aligned with it? Or do we find, or is it iteration? What's the process?
Yes. So talent, or the fact that you have special skills innate, only means that somewhere in the past you've already worked on it. So a child has a natural musical gift. What do the parents say? Now for the rest of your life you must do only this because that will be your great career. And the child says, no, I don't want that. I want something else. That's the soul's line of development is different. Okay, so just because you have a skill does not mean you must spend all your life just in that narrow skill. This is the biggest mistake that is made when you go to these consultants, education consultants, talent consultants. They will look at your marks at the age of 10 and say, you should become a doctor, you should become an engineer. No, you've not even come into your own in terms of your capacity. And just because you have a skill or a talent doesn't mean you should be stuck in that, right? So I would rather say, and this is my advice generally to all my friends and their children, till the age of 25, do not specialize. If you want to really develop your full potential, develop as many capacities of experiences as you can. Learn to play an instrument. Just because I can't do something, do it. Because you have to break that barrier of saying, I can't. Learn to do it. Maybe for a week, for a two. Doesn't matter. You're not going to make a career out of it. This is the mistake your parents made by saying, you must be so good at this that one day you'll be the world's best. No, that's not your goal, to be the world's best. Have fun. Develop the capacity. Open the faculties. That's your goal. And do things which you can't do. For a week, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then if you think, oh, I'm actually growing, I'm learning something, and even though I will stop it after 1 year or even 6 months, let me push it as far as I can. If you enjoy it, please do. Push it as far as you can. Then switch to something else, then something else, then something else. As many as you can in terms of developing the spread of your faculties. I'm going to give you a very important insight here regarding your future and your career. What matters finally is not which subjects you read. It does not matter in which subject you had high number of marks. What matters is when you're thrown in the middle of the desert with a crisis, how you're able to survive, right? For which none of those subjects will matter. What is being used in that crisis management are your capacity of thought, capacity to process information, capacity to gain insights and manage and manipulate your skills. In the subject you studied, this capacity will remain, but not the subject. You understand? So ideally, what I would do in the educational system, and this is what we do in the ashram, in the framework that Sri Aurobindo created for the education of India, by the way, 100 years ago. He said if India has to free, education has to be of a different kind, so that you develop this capacity. We call it integral education. Okay? There we shift the focus from subjects to faculties. Your faculty of observation, your faculty of analysis, your faculty of synthesis, your faculty of developing insights, and your faculty of comprehension. Which subject? I will take the subject that interests you most at your current age. And through that, I'll develop those faculties. And once those faculties are developed, I can apply it in any subject and you will do well in that subject, right? Think about it logically. This is how education should have been designed from the beginning. Instead, they made you learn subjects and develop no faculties except memory. Instead, I'm going to take now for each child according to their interest and grow into developing the faculties. And if your faculties are developed, all your subjects will work. So I'm coming to this now in a broad way. This is what you will do as young adults. Develop your faculties. For developing your faculties, do whatever you can which you find interesting. Some of you have a natural tendency for music, some don't. If you don't, please practice music, but in a way that you have fun and develop that which is missing in you. Those who have it, yes, surely grow, but push in the boundaries where you feel your skills are lacking, or take up something completely contrary. Can you program? Abstract programming skills, please take it up. Do it for a week or two, maybe for a month or two. Have fun doing it. You're not going to pass exams, you're just going to learn and push your skills, and maybe you'll drop it later, doesn't matter. So work in various ways. Even if you have a musical skill, I can play on the keyboard, learn the guitar. If you can play the guitar, learn the flute. If you can play the flute, you see, push the skill boundary in all directions as much as you can for as long as you can. And there will come a point where you will find these things enriching everything else. I'll give an example here. You see, music is what they call right brain faculty. As you're playing the rhythm now, the mood of the music has to match the overall composition. So there's always the whole implicit in the part. Okay, that's part of the training. Or in painting, as you paint, one stroke here has to be in constant balance with the whole painting. It can't be too dark or too light, right? So if you have a skill of painting, and now I start coding a computer program. I'm saying this from experience. So I used to code from the age of 12. I'm sitting with what was considered one of the best at that point this guy was 20 years older than me. We're coding together and we did something and I made a change. And the moment I made the change, I was holding the entire program within me like a painting. I said, now there is a disharmony with that point. We have just created a bug. And I took him back went through 3 steps and a variation, and here we hit the bug. And he looked at me stunned and said, how did you figure that out? Why? Because he was only doing the programming. I was painting. I was playing music. I was building a harmony in coding. You understand how this works? If you develop within you all the faculties, the way they blend into each other is the basis for what I've been telling you from the beginning, mastery. And what that mastery and what that intuition can give you is something so wonderful. You'll just have the satisfaction of doing it, irrespective of whether others appreciate or not. You understand? Your life will be so much fulfilled, so much fun. Does that make sense? Does that satisfy? Okay. Someone here? Yes.
I wanted to ask a question about the Indian Hinduist time. How you have these yugas, and then there is a Kali Yuga in which we currently live. So, from what I understood, basically there is a war going on, and this war doesn't just mean that it's a fight in between humans, but it's also manipulation,
Yes.
control. It's digital and both physical. So if this period Kali Yuga ends, then after that something must happen. So is the apocalypse going to be inevitable? And if good and evil forces exist, they coexist. Is there a point to fight? Why is it worth it?
You have all heard of this cycle of yugas. Okay? But the impression we have is, oh, one day the yuga will end and then something else will start. But I would ask you, why? Why did it happen in the first place? What will make it end? And what will make that other thing start? There has to be a rationale. It doesn't just happen like magic, right? So you have to understand what is this business of yugas. Once you understand it, you will notice something very important, and it will all line up to, it will give you the answer that you're looking for. First, understand what is a yuga. Why are there 4 yugas? Why not 5? Is there a time cycle associated in a sequence? So this insight Sri Aurobindo gives us, he explains that the psychology of any growth undergoes 4 phases. So I'll first give an example which you've all had. Have you ever done a New Year resolution? This year, I am going to get up early in the morning, I'm going to do my exercises, I'm going to eat healthy food, etc. Okay, do my homework. What happens when you first decide, you have so much enthusiasm, so much joy, the thing you feel within you as a truth is spontaneously expressed. And you do it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days if you're lucky. 5th day already, now I'm tired, now I'm sleepy. 6th day, it becomes difficult. What happens then? So first phase, understand, truth is spontaneously self-driven. You have to make no effort. That's the golden age, the Satya Yuga. That's the golden age, okay? Next, what happens? There's a gap. More and more, you feel I want to do, but the part which does not want. So some part wants, some part does not want, and a gap forms. Now I wake up, force myself, and drag out of bed. Force myself and still do. I have to keep up that which is true. This is second phase. This is the Treta Yuga, where your willpower is living up to the truth. Now you're willpower driven, no more spontaneous. Then there's a struggle. Third phase, your willpower fails. I can't push myself anymore. What do I do next? I put an alarm. My alarm wakes me and I shut off the alarm, so I've set it for snooze. So it'll wake me again after 10 minutes. And I keep snoozing it 3 or 4 times and then I get up. Eventually I stop the alarm and I tell my friend or my neighbor, when you wake up, drag me out of bed. So third phase is when your willpower is not enough. You create an external mechanism to compel you to do. This is your Dwapara age. Now you understand the logic. In the Satya Yuga, you don't need administration, you don't need police, you don't need boss. Everyone is spontaneously in alignment with truth. No kings needed. In the second stage, willpower driven, everybody has to make an effort. And that's the character of the period, that this is a good thing to do. That is not good. Avoid this, do this. And all the advice, good advice which you find in scripture comes there. Okay. Third stage, your will is not good enough, so you have to create machinery, religious machinery, police, crime, punishment, your law and jails. Why? To force you. If you don't do this, you'll go to jail. So out of fear, you better do the right thing. You understand? External driven machinery and all the social norms are created there. All the religions happen there. All the good bad ideology is fixed on you there. That is what people now criticize looking back. See, in those days, they did not give the same value to women. That's the norm at that point. It doesn't mean anything. That's not scripture. That's not spiritual truth. It's just a norm of a certain period. Drop it. But what happens now? When you start running this external machinery, very quickly you start suffocating in the machinery. Now my friend drags me out of bed every day and I start hating him for it. Now I have the police and the jail monitoring me and threatening me and I start feeling suffocated. I can't be free. I want to be able to do what I want. And at some point, the machinery becomes so overwhelming to keep society on track with the truth, which you have now forgotten, right? That the machinery itself becomes your jail. And you are no more free to find yourself. At that point, there is the rebellion which breaks the machinery. I will no more follow this. I will rebel against all these views, ideals and ideas and laws and rules. I will live my life. That's when you have the chaos of the Kali. Interesting. The Kali is coming from a rebellion where the machinery became too suffocating. But the rebellion is to find what? My truth. That truth is forgotten or no more relevant. It was at that time, but not now. It doesn't mean anything to me. Just words or ideas. What do I want now? So in the Kali phase, you have chaos because everyone is trying to find their own way. And it's all chaotic. There's no structure anymore left. But in that, what is happening in you, the drive is, what is my truth? And Sri Aurobindo observed the first phase of this is finding my truth with what I know. My body's needs, my body's desires, my body's comfort. Having satisfied that, I say, but it's not enough. What about my emotions, my affections? I need this. I explore this. And having got that, it's not enough. What about my ideas? And intellect kicks in. And when that has failed, you go to something still deeper. Is there a deeper truth? Now notice this has actually happened. We went through a phase of might is right. We went through a phase when power is right. Whoever is in power is right. You are wrong if you're not in power. You know that, how it is. Then comes logic is right. And a lot of so-called modernism is this intellect, logic. And they said, science driven by logic will solve all the problems of the world. It's become worse. So having crossed the modern phase, we have realized intelligence is not enough. Intention matters. And modernism collapses into what we call postmodernism. Now suddenly intention is more important. What did you mean? What did you want? What did you feel inside? A subjectivism forms. So Sri Aurobindo marks this as a transitory point between this Kali Yuga and the thing which will happen later. So let me give you the big picture first. When finally you find yourself again, see, this is what I am. This is what I want. And the moment that happens, spontaneously you begin to live that truth which you have found. And you have your next Satya Yuga. So you see the logic of it is perfect. In between though, before I find and I've abandoned the external forms, before I found the deeper truth is the subjective phase. And Sri Aurobindo warns about this. He said this is the most dangerous phase. Because in the subjectivism, you have no reference. No objective reference. So you can stop short. I feel, follow my heart, which amounts to follow my desire, follow my impulse. And that can be extremely dangerous. He explains this is what happened in the Second World War in Europe. Germany was one of the most developed in a certain way. You see the best musicians, the best scientists, the best in every field you found in Germany. And it was ready for the subjective age, but what did it do? It stopped, I am so great, and the ego took the place of the soul. I am so great, others are inferior, and so the great have to dominate. Remember, survival of the fittest. We are more fit, we suppress everyone else, subjugate the world by the superior master race. This was the Nazi ideology. It was the ego of the nation dominating the world, not the soul. So the subjective phase danger is that you stop short with the ego and say, I am whatever I want. That's not true. You are not your ego. You continue to go deeper. What is it truly that makes me want this? Until you reach the deepest truth of you, and there you realize in your soul the underlying sense of oneness with all, and then your uniqueness is able to express itself in harmony with the world. You're able to help the world rise if you're strong. You're able to share wisdom with the world if you have greater wisdom. You're able to serve the world in whatever you do. And when everybody tends towards this, you have the next golden age, the next Satya Yuga. But the passage in between of this subjective phase is the most dangerous. This is where we see what I spoke of, the woke ideology comes in. Suddenly now, oh, why we are gender fluid, I'm this or that or whatever I want to change next moment. No, that's not true. These are superficial, internal, emotional subjectivities. They are not your soul. They are not a deeper truth. Find your soul. Do not stop short. This is the dangerous phase humanity has entered in. So, hence, all the chaos that you see. In each one saying, I will follow what I want, what I feel like. And those who do follow something deeper do find. Those who don't, you have the clash. But everybody is using the same words, but they mean different things. So be very careful. Don't believe someone's words because they say it. Okay? So this is the rationale for the transition, and we are on the brink of what Sri Aurobindo calls the spiritual age. Because as each one in humanity now finds their deeper truth, there is a spontaneity of a deeper reality now felt and shared, and you have the next spiritual age, the next Satya Yuga. So we are on the brink of that, so to say. I'm not going into the cycles and their dates. There is a rationale within that, but I'm describing rather the psychological phases. If you understand this, you will notice this 4-step process is inherently the mechanism of all growth. Therefore, not only is this true in cycles of human development, it's also true in cycles of national development. It's also true in cycles of startup companies. They go through the Satya Yuga and then all the 4 stages until they lose, and then they reinvent themselves and find a new truth. It also is true for you in every step that you make to put in practice some deep truth, as for example with the New Year resolution. Once you understand this, you can leverage these 4 stages by understanding what they represent and amplify their utility to get to the next insight of truth more rapidly. Okay, but you understand through the 4 stages, the truth which was once felt in one part of you has now slowly got suffused into the rest of you and entrenched and integrated into your whole life. Now that thing is no more a question. The new truth found makes for a new wave and a new wave. So each of these 4-step cycles, it's a spiral. You build upon the previous for the next and the next, until such time as you come into self-mastery, at which point you don't need cycles. You still have processes and stages, but you don't need the cycles of losing something in order to rise to the next. That makes sense logically. Okay, so understand that these things, which we are never taught unfortunately in our school, have deep spiritual principles and truths which are there inherent in the civilizational knowledge, in the yoga knowledge. Recognize that if something looks strange to you, it's because either it's been misrepresented or you're not seeing the deeper truth behind. Don't stop with the appearances. Don't be judgmental. Oh, this is all old knowledge, past truths. No, there's a deeper truth behind. Get to that. Then you'll find either the truth is relevant to you and you apply it, or the form of it is not relevant, you discard and give to it a new form. I think we have, how much time? You have to tell us. Okay. Do we have time for one question?
One question. How about we take
You choose then.
questions, and then if it's similar, then quick ones. Yeah.
So basically, what I want to know is now when it comes to this willpower, how do we develop that kind of willpower? Like I'm saying beyond the ordinary self-control.
Yes.
I don't want to have more.
Yes.
To the extent which our spiritual masters have.
Yes.
So a lot of
Okay, how to build your willpower. Next question.
My question is, time is the most important resource that we have.
Yes.
So when you're saying we can try different things,
what is to be taken as a profession, what is to be taken as a hobby. And
Okay.
one more thing, you told us that.
So the question is, time is the most precious resource. What do you take as a profession? What as a hobby?
And you told us that our family and grandparents was the best. Also, the society has.
Often, not always. Don't go blindly with just
When it
that.
goes to choosing a profession, they always want us to have the safest option.
Yes, that's why. Then they don't know you. You see, they don't know you. You're too different. So she said, sometimes grandparents want you to have the safest option. Then they don't know you truly. But again, this just take it as their affection for you and their fear of the unknown. But if your nature is different, you want to explore and you're willing to jump into fire and play out and explore, why not? This is the age to do it. You can't do it at their age, but you can do it now. You have nothing to lose. Go ahead. Why not? Right? So these are things you'll have to choose.
Food, what do we eat and how does it affect his memory?
Okay.
Yes, you can do it.
Food and the effect of
How
food.
to know your true soul voice or whatever memory you access about the soul, that is a delusion or memory distortion or hallucination.
How do you know that your soul's memory is real and not delusion? So first of all, I'm not speaking of soul's memory. I'm speaking of soul's aspiration for this life. And the aspiration is something that flows from deep within you. And one way to know it, you observe what kind of activity gives you the deepest satisfaction. Now, many things give you many kinds of satisfaction. What gives you deepest and most lasting satisfaction? That's a broad direction. So I give an example, somebody who was a chartered accountant. So he's, it's numbers, and I asked him, so you would think he's a knowledge person, but I felt it was different. So I asked him, does it give you greater joy to have done the right thing in your chartered accountancy? You've solved balanced all the finances. Or does it give you greater joy to face a problem and overcome a challenge? He said, I need a problem. I need to chase after a really hard problem and overcome it. See, his temperament is Kshatriya. But he was in this slot. So he was kind of bored with his job. He would look for problems where there were none. Invent problems to fight and overcome so that it would give him the excitement and joy. So simply observing what gives you the deepest satisfaction gives you a certain direction of your soul's innate direction. The form is not important here. But you will find certain forms are more amenable, some are less. So there you choose the forms. Again here, because of the tendency today, you'll see these forms give me more money, that gives me less. Never make that the final criteria. Certainly it's a criteria and you'll choose your balance. But if you say just because this makes me more and I'm willing to forego the affinity and alignment of my nature, that you will regret later, inevitably. So don't do that. Find rather the initially, especially you're young, you can go through your life even roughing it out. This is the age when you explore and experiment what gives you deepest satisfaction, even if it doesn't give you maximum money. Later you'll find your balance and you'll find your way. So coming to the question of the time and the willpower. So your time is limited. What is hobby and what is career? I will say again, my advice is till the age of 25, do not distinguish. All hobby is helping you grow. There are faculties you're awakening which will fill every other faculty and amplify your capacity in whatever your career is. So initially, everything for you should be learning. And even if you have a broad sense of career, the hobbies are nourishing and developing your capacity to fulfill your career. Remember what I said the first day, AI will replace you if you are not something really worthwhile, creative. So all those faculties which you amplify, AI will never be able to match. That's what will make you precious, capable. And in your ability to execute what you want to do, it will give you the means because you did those hobbies. If you did dancing, by the way, just as an example, if you did practice of dancing when you were 10 years old, your body is more conscious than most people. That coordination of your body actually reflects in your brain's integration of coordination between left and right brains. Do you know that? When you're doing left-right coordination of arms and hands, and particularly harmonious gestures and movements, you're integrating left and right brain. Your creativity and your rationality will be better integrated. So just a physical hobby, supposedly, is actually developing your mind power. So till the age of 25, because that's when your individuality is most formed biologically. Do as much as you can. Again, because of time, you may restrict certain things. Find your balance there. But do not make this artificial distinction prematurely. Coming to the point of power of willpower, and I'm going to link it to concentration also, because this is the other factor which together, willpower and concentration, will make it possible for you to achieve anything, learn anything, do anything, develop any capacity or skill. If you don't have these two, you can spend hours, days, years, and still get very little result. If you have these two, what would take you 1 month to achieve, you can compress into 1 week. What would take you 1 hour to learn or to write or to create, you can do in 20 minutes or less. So if you had to do one thing alone in terms of faculties developed, this would be it: concentration and, as a consequence, willpower. How do you develop these two? And very simply, both concentration and willpower are like muscles. The more you use them, the more they will grow. And what do you do when you want to develop muscles? You don't take 100 kilos and lift. You take 1 kilo and lift 100 times. Right? That's easy to do. So same you do with concentration or willpower. So I'll give an exercise which I also did at a certain stage when I said I need to develop my willpower. You take one tiny thing which is very easy to do, for which there is no excuse. In my case, it was every morning after breakfast, the cup which I used to drink during breakfast, I will personally take it, wash it, wipe it, and put it back. Now, as you know, the 4 cycles of the yugas, first 2 weeks was very easy. Second week, the laziness kicked in. After 2 months, there was a crisis. I had to rush. And the tendency was, I tell my mother, can you please wash and do? And that's when I brought in my rational mind. I said, there is no excuse. This whole thing I can do in 20 seconds, maybe 10 seconds if I move fast enough. It will not change anything with my crisis. And I forced myself to do it. And I can see this part within me that's saying, I don't want to do. And the other part says, no, I want to do. And I keep doing it every day, not miss. And if someday you've forgotten, which will happen, what do? The moment you remember, you go right back, pick up that cup, wash it, wipe it, and put it back, even if it's been done. So this part which is resisting learns that there's no escape. If I don't do now, I'll do later anyways. Okay, it accepts. Now what happens? It's a very tiny thing you did. But because you did this repeatedly and you have learned to develop your willpower on a tiny thing, you find your willpower now acts on bigger things spontaneously, effortlessly, in everything you do during the day. Now you wanted to finish your homework and your friend said, come now. And 5 minutes I could finish this. You're about to say, okay. But you say, yeah, but let me just finish. Because now that habit is set in. See, the willpower kicks in with small things. Do not aim for the big things which are difficult to do. Aim for small things, and there you catch your willpower. Automatically it will act in the big things. And it's the same for concentration. You take up a simple activity which you love to do and enter into it with full attention, full focus. And go as deep and as long as you can, because you love to do it, it's no problem, right? When it finishes, now you say, oh, now I'm tired. At that point, instead of stopping, let me push a little more. And you push the boundary of the focus of concentration. There's a distraction that comes. Your mobile phone rings. You put it on silent. I will not be distracted. I bring right back. Somebody called you. You say, okay, please don't disturb. After 10 minutes, I'll come back to my focus. In the focus, you extend as much as you can, as long as you can, as deep as you can, with full focus. What happens now? The first day you're able to do so much. Within 10 days, you can do at least twice as much. I'll give an example. Again, this is an exercise I gave to a child. By the way, this is a very powerful exercise to boost your intelligence also. So this child was dyslexic. He had a lot of problems. He couldn't hold his attention. He was hyperactive, whatever, the usual terms, so which they'll give you medicines. So I see him with his mother, and while we're talking, he's swinging his arms like he's swinging a cricket bat, and he's restless all the time. Literally, it's like that. Naturally, obviously, he couldn't concentrate on anything in school. I said, do you really want to? He said, yes, I really want. The need was real. The question always comes back to this, do you really want? I said, okay, I'm going to give you effort and exercise which is boring. But I assure you, if you can do this every day, within 2 months, you'll find a dramatic difference in all your capacity in school. Okay. So I give him the exercise. I said, you take a children's book with large letters. Okay. You're not going to read the text to understand. You're going to observe the print of the text of each letter one at a time. So the first word is the, cat, whatever. So I observe the letter T, which goes like this. And with my eyes, follow the full outline of the letter T. Completed. H, follow in minute detail, full attention of concentration. Observing the texture of paper, ink, smudge of ink, shape of the letter, curvature, nothing else matters. I go 2 letters, 3 letters, finish 2 words. Whoa, I'm tired. Again, get back. As much as you can. Interestingly, within 1 week, you can do 1 line. And I said to him, the day you can complete 1 page, you'll find a dramatic improvement in your class. And this is a fact. I don't know how long he took, maybe a month or 2 to get to that 1 page. And after that, he was dramatically better in his concentration. Subsequently, I found 1 year later, he was teaching others in his class. And as he completed his education, he joined the IIT with good marks. That's good. Okay. And this was dyslexic who had no hope. IQ will shoot up because finally, if your focus of concentration is not developed, even if you have intelligence, you can't apply it. Right? If your concentration grows, your intelligence will get boosted because you're using it. And willpower, concentration combined, you can achieve anything. Okay, so I will end with this idea, but remember, faculties are more important than subjects because they go across all subjects and they will act everywhere in life. Develop all the spread of your capacities. You are infinite potential. Enjoy it. Enjoy the growth. Enjoy the development. Enjoy self-mastery. And with that, you can really, truly enjoy your life. And that will be worth it, isn't it? Do you agree? Okay. So I think you wanted to... Malika ji had asked me to also speak to you about meditation. Some of you had asked about it. We won't have time to do something, but I will suggest for some of you who are interested, on my YouTube channel, which is called Integral Studies, search for this phrase, Guided Meditation for Descent of Peace. There's a particular process that is described, and just follow the process as you do it, seated. And the experience you will have will be something quite different from anything you have had. See if this helps you, and if it helps you, build on it, deepen it. You don't have to follow the guided process. Once you've got the experience, you can build on the experience on your own. One of the things it will do is it will give you the experience of silence of mind, but also the descent from above, which will amplify your intelligence. This will be very useful for that. And also this discussion about relationships. I had about 7 sessions there on the discussion of relationships where I've elaborated many things, which are from... Yes, she will send you the links then. There's 7 sessions to 8. Yes. And other talks, which you'll find helpful. There's also a whole session on how to learn. If you're preparing for an exam, how to maximize with your capacity as you have. Many interesting things you will find there. Okay, that's it then. We'll take a moment to concentrate. We'll take a moment to concentrate and internalize all that we have felt, received, understood, and to put it into practice in our lives. May all of your bodies and lives grow into their full potential and the soul's spiritual potential in service to Mother India and the Divine Mother and humanity. Vande Mataram.